Something's playing. Stop playing.
Oh, I hate it when it does that. It hides the window.
It does, yes.
It must be a young person thing.
Yeah, right. So our children have got an app called Kick Messenger. My God, I cannot figure that out. I can't. None of it. It's all buttons and none of it's buttons. It doesn't make any sense.
This is Sheer Isolation. It's presented by Kieran Moore in Trowbridge and John Ponting in Cricklade.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This is Sheer Isolation. I am John Ponting in Cricklade, and my friend and colleague Kieran Moore is hiding in his loft in Trowbridge.
Yo, I still am. I haven't moved.
He hasn't moved, and we've not recorded one for a couple of weeks. You may have noticed we've been putting a few compilations and different shows out there for various reasons. Kieran's not moved. He's been sat there 2 weeks just waiting for me.
Just waiting, exactly.
That's why he looks so pasty.
That's right, thank you.
The purpose of this show is to highlight and promote the local music and art scene across the west of England. We'll play a couple of tracks in the next half hour. We'll have a bit of a chat, and we will be talking to a very, very interesting guy, Kieran, somebody who seems to be a very good friend, the way you guys were talking, Johnny Black. Do you want to give us a very quick sentence? Who is this man?
Johnny Black is a music journalist who lives in Devizes and who's lived there for about 30 years. But he previously lived in London, and he's worked with some of the biggest and greatest bands that ever existed, including the Beach Boys.
He talks a lot about the Beach Boys, and we're going to split this interview into two parts. So today it's going to be mostly Beach Boys related, and then we'll get on to why he's living in Wiltshire next week. So that's coming up. I like to ask this question, Kieran. It's been a couple of weeks since I've asked it, so you're probably going to have a lot of things to tell me. But have you been to any gigs lately?
I actually had a week off from doing gigs. I went on holiday, went to Devon and just had a week in a field, which was lovely. But I have been to a gig because last Friday we had Emily Barker of the Red Clay Halo fame, and she came and performed at the Pump in Trowbridge, and it was absolutely magnificent. She's just, I don't know, she's just got to a point in her life, in her career, where she's effortlessly good now. You know, she doesn't even seem to be trying.
So I was away for a week as well. I went to the south of Spain. Not that I'm trying to brag over Devon, because I love Devon, but that just happened to be where I was last week. I found it fascinating that in the centre of this town, up until about midnight, so from about 10:30 till midnight, they have live music just out in public.
Oh, nice.
Actually, all organised. It's not buskers. It's proper. They get the speakers set up, and there's crowds of people gather around. And I'm just thinking, wouldn't that be amazing to do that in the middle of Devizes every night of the week? Have live music until midnight, blaring into the town centre.
Presumably, that's because they have their siestas between 10 or 11 and 2, or whatever it is, or 12 and 2.
Which again is something I absolutely love.
I think that's wonderful.
Maybe just start doing it, Kieran, just see if it catches on here.
I think just move to Spain. I think we need to reassess our lives, realise that working till we're dead is not beneficial to us, and start having better experiences. With
you on that. Right. We'll get the tickets. While we're doing that, let's play a tune, Kieran. Arms and Hearts.
So yeah, we're going to play a song by Arms and Hearts. It's a song called Out for Blood. Arms and Hearts, he has a real sound to his music. It kind of comes under the banner of folk punk, but I mean, he's kind of like an acoustic emo artist, really. I don't know, but he's all lyrics. He's an absolute talent. I found that his album he released a couple of years ago, which is his last release, he just seemed to really galvanize his sound and his identity. I absolutely fell in love with it. And all the songs off that record all have a vibe and a feel. And it's a really, really outstanding album. And he's an absolute talent. I just wanted to share it with a few more people.
Sorry state, it's so far from one. It don't make it easy. All I wanna do is cut and run. All these bitter ends, all these leftover words, my inner monologue of self-doubt strangles me. Maybe next year, maybe never. Maybe next year I'll be better and able to watch my mouth. I traded my currency off, walking when the going gets tough. I'm out of here. treat your friends like a crutch and never let it go. If you're out for blood, then come and get some. If you're out for blood, then come and get some. If this year taught me anything, it's how evil people can be. If you're out for blood, then come and get some. If you're out for blood, then come and get some. If you bring the light of blue, I'll bring something to make a spark, and we'll burn it down. You had your points to prove, you had water to clear, you had the night twisting in the flesh. I'm a glutton for punishment. Now I'm running down the platform into the early morning sun. I got nowhere to hide, 'cause I can't share the air, and I won't even try. If you're out for blood, then come and get some. If you're out for blood, then come and get some. If the shit's taught me anything, it's how evil people can be. If you're out for blood, then come and get some. If you're out for blood, then come and get some. If you bring the light of blue, I'll bring something to make a start, and we'll burn it down. If this year's taught me anything at all, 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 gotta burn it down to the grave. You always had a thought inside of me. You never gave me anywhere to hide. Always there in my unsettled mind. You always had a thought inside of me. You never gave me anywhere to hide. Think it's time we'll put some distance in between you and I.
That tune is called Out for Blood. It is by Arms and Hearts, who is he on more of a tour?
4-date tour. So it's Liverpool, London, Rochdale, and Trowbridge. I mean, look at Rochdale knocking it out of the park there. It's not something I ever thought I'd ever say, but Rochdale absolutely delivering there.
So we have a feature on our show, which is product placement, where Kieran shows off the latest vinyl he's received, and probably for about the last 8 weeks or so, it's either been in the car or it's been left at work, or Kieran's been left at work and the vinyl's been left in his loft. I don't know. Either way, over to you, Kieran, for the first product placement in what seems to be 2 years.
So this is a record by Northern Irish band Axis of. This is an album called Bella Pacifica. Now, what colour do you reckon that is, John?
Well, from here, it looks like they've melted down some water bottles.
Ah, yes, very close. It's a very, 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 very clear, very I can see right the way through it clear blue vinyl. It's utterly, utterly sensational. I think when people look at old record collections in the future, there's not going to be any black vinyl. It just doesn't exist. Well, certainly not in mine. Mine's all coloured vinyl. And they say it's the sound isn't as good, but it's not true. The technology these days, what they make it out of, it sounds great. This was a surprise album. Nobody expected it. They just recorded it and banged it out there into the world. And I absolutely love them. Big, chunky, glorious, loud rock songs that just sound fun. So that's this week's product placement. There it is, the album front cover.
Okay, time for this week's guest. I found this one particularly fascinating because of all the hundreds, and we can say hundreds of shows we've done now because it is more than 100. This is the first interview that I've not actually sat down and recorded and listened to at the time. So this is the first interview that I was able to be a listener, and I found it fascinating.
He's a real interesting guy, isn't he? And to think that he lived in Devizes, like right underneath our noses. And I can't believe, John, that I didn't ask him earlier.
And for starters, his name's Johnny Black, which is a proper showbiz name to start with.
That's his real name as well. That's not even like a faux pen name. That's his real name.
And he's a music journalist. So tell us tell us first off, before we go into the interview, how you two connected.
He's got a son called Will Black, and his son used to come to the gigs and devices. And he was in an emo band. I've forgotten what they were called, but they're a proper emo band. But actually, Will went on to be a superb writer like his dad. He got a superb taste in music, but got a superb insight as well. I think if you sort of live in that environment, you can't help have it rub off on you. So Will is someone that I respect hugely, but obviously his dad's the business, so hence his dad.
My teenage years were spent in a town called Pennycook outside Edinburgh. So my first gigs would have been, I was in a band there as well. I was the so-called vocalist. I think vocalist is one of those words that means you can't actually sing, but you can make vocal noises.
Yes, not the singer.
Yes, exactly. I was in a band there with some friends at school, and we used to go to see gigs at Pennycook Town Hall, where we would see exotic bands like The Jury.
Oh.
I dare say none of your viewers or listeners or whatever will have ever heard of them. And The Ceiling Light Machine, who were a psychedelic band from Hawick in the Scottish borders. And that was the kind of thing that we did. And in those days, the town hall, it's fascinating looking back on it. The town hall was the venue in Pennycook. But when I think back on it, the bands could really, they only played sort of 2 or 3 chords at best. But the young people, of which I was one, honestly, they sat on opposite sides of the hall. The girls sat on one side of the hall and the boys sat on the other side of the hall. And then when the music started, they could meet in the middle, and if they got on well, they would dance in the middle of the floor. And the other thing that was always memorable was that when the bands played, nobody danced. The dancing only took place when the DJ came on and played records.
So what do they do?
And the band you stood and gawped at. Because by this time it was, I guess we're into the late 60s, and the bands were getting more kind of prog.
Right. Okay.
So whereas 50s and early 60s bands were there to entertain you and help you to dance.
Yeah.
By the time of late 69, you had to listen to the band, man.
Right.
And,
okay. And wig out and maybe.
And wig out, exactly.
Yeah.
Not in Pennycook Town Hall, you didn't. But yeah, I mean, things had changed by that point. So it was the beginning of the prog era,
sure.
Which I hated personally. But after that, I moved into Edinburgh, continued playing in bands, then eventually moved down to London, where I worked in the civil service in Whitehall as a what I like to describe as a Whitehall Sultan of Spin. I was in the press office dealing with Scottish ministers and things like that. And I didn't enjoy it because politics is not my thing. But it gave me the grounding in press work and in dealing with journalists. So when I left there, I was able to move to the CBS Records press office.
Amazing.
And
presumably you always had a passion for music. Always, you listening to it. So when you moved to London,
absolutely. I grew up. My sister and I would sing harmonies to Everly Brothers songs and things like. So I guess my musical, and my parents were huge fans of Dean Martin, and so I just grew up listening to popular music. And it's still much the same, isn't it? I mean, it hasn't really changed dramatically, apart from maybe the arrival of rap and the arrival of electronic music in the 70s. They kind of changed things a bit, but essentially you're still largely talking about a small number of people and a few instruments and singing songs to make people happy.
So obviously getting a job at CBS must have been like a dream come true.
It was, yeah. Being a press officer in the civil service in Whitehall was interesting because I got to go in and out of Parliament and stuff like that. But I wasn't really attached to the idea of that. But I managed to, I conned the people at CBS into thinking I knew something about music, and they got me in, and I discovered right away that the difference between government press office and private press office, a record company press office, is that in the government press office, you're trying to stop people learning things.
Yeah, right.
And in a record company press office, you're trying to tell people things about people they're not really terribly interested in. So I was assigned a bunch of artists, and that was kind of a downside to it, because you would be assigned Ted Nugent, who's a heavy metal guitarist,
yeah,
plus Tammy Wynette, who's a country singer.
Actually, you sent me a wonderful picture of you and Tammy Wynette, so we're going to drop that into the video so that we can see it.
Oh, that's good.
What a great shot! What a great picture!
Oh yeah.
I mean,
well, we did lots of these. I mean, I think that was a signing shot, if I remember rightly. She'd come into the country, she'd signed to CBS, and we needed a picture to tell the media that we'd done this thing. You know, she was absolutely charming. She wouldn't leave a gig. I mean, I never liked her music, but she wouldn't leave a gig without signing autographs for every fan at the stage door. She was absolutely lovely.
But, but looking back, she's a colossus in country and sort of folk music. She is huge.
Yeah, Tammy and Dolly.
Yeah. Did you know at the time that you were dealing with people of that stature? Did you appreciate it? Did you understand it?
I don't think I did appreciate it. You know, you're when you're that young, I must have been in my early 20s, I suppose, you just accept what happens to you. You know, you think, oh, I'd love to work in a rock and roll venue or whatever, like you're doing. I'd like to do that. And then suddenly it happens to you and you can't quite believe that it's happening. I mean, one of the most extraordinary things that happened to me was I had grown up listening to the Beach Boys, and I had loved the Beach Boys. And lots of my contemporaries railed against me for loving the Beach Boys because they wore stripy shirts, and they just looked a bit gormless, really. But I had loved that. They did. Their image was dreadful, not as bad as Paul Revere and the Raiders, but but when I got to CBS, the Beach Boys were just about to sign to CBS. And I can remember going into a meeting with my head of press, Jonathan Morris, at that time, and they were trying to decide who would take on the Beach Boys, because it was a big thing for the label. Nobody wanted to work with the Beach Boys. Really? Because they were, by this point, early 70s, they were regarded as totally naff.
Right.
They'd had all their hits and everything. Really, their only big hits in the UK were Good Vibrations and Help Me Rhonda and things like that. Yeah. But they were much bigger in America than they ever were here. So when they come to CBS, nobody wanted to work with the Beach Boys. And I'm sitting there going, yes, I'll work with the Beach Boys. Can I have the Beach Boys? So about 3 days after arriving at CBS, I was the Beach Boys press officer.
Wow. What a start.
It was quite extraordinary, yeah. But, as I say, nobody else in the company gave a hoot about them. They were a big deal in America, where CBS was based. But in England, the move was on to launch British artists. Like we had The Clash and people like that. And we had a host of smaller bands like the Sinceros and After the Fire and people like that, and a Dutch band called Grupo Sportivo, who were excellent. We were trying to launch our own thing. And for me, just the idea of being the Beach Boys press officer was just beyond my wildest dreams.
I'm struggling to believe, or to be in that mindset where somebody would say, oh, they're old hat. I mean, even pop bands now that are old hat, people would still chew your arm off for. Even like, I don't know, the Spice Girls, they've already had their hits, they're not going to do it again, but they want to come back, it would be big news.
Yeah, I think there's much more respect among the younger generation for older artists now, and possibly too much respect for older artists. I've heard you yourself say that why are young people so interested in going to see cover bands when there are young people making really interesting new music?
Yeah, it's very true. It's something we're currently experiencing.
Yeah. But I mean, one of my big thrills at CBS, again, sorry, harping on about the Beach Boys, was going to the Reading Festival, and before the gig, I had to go backstage and into their dressing room, and they were literally sitting around singing a cappella, singing what was then their current hit called Lady Linda, and I was just standing there getting a private a private Beach Boys concert in their back room, and it ended, and I said, "Hi, it's me, it's Johnny from CBS," and Carl Wilson looked over and he said, "Hi, Johnny, we're just singing fools." And that is what they were. I mean, they were like the Bee Gees in that they'd grown up singing together. They'd been taught how to sing harmonies. And that's what they enjoyed doing more than anything. And after that, when they went on stage, Carl actually, me and my wife were sitting out front, and Carl actually waved from the stage of Reading and said, "Hi, Johnny."
Oh, very cool.
That was so cool. I mean, moment of fame.
Just to lead us out, we asked you to pick a song. What have you picked for us?
Well, it's a bit arrogant, but I do. when you write songs, you do want people to hear them.
Of course.
So I have a song of mine. I've written about 40 odd songs. I have a song of mine called "This Is My Moon," and I'd quite like to choose that.
But do you want to just briefly tell us about what the song is, or is it a mystery?
The song is the idea of "This Is My Moon." Was walking up on Salisbury Plain one night, walking the dog probably, and I looked up and I saw the moon and I thought, wonderful. It is. I mean, looking at the sky always gets me thinking, how fantastic that we live on this rock in the middle of space, and we're tiny and we're nothing, and we've got this other rock spinning around us. And I just thought, but it felt like it was my moon that night. You know, I was the only person on the plane, and I thought, this is my moon, and these are my stars, and that's the chorus: is "This is my moon, and these are my stars."
Hannah and her sister were out together, walking arm in arm. Her sister says to Hannah, "You know, I think that you're my lucky charm. Of all the places I have been, and all the things I've seen in
So that track is This Is My Moon. It is by Johnny Black, and we're going to play more of that interview in maybe next week or a couple of weeks' time, because it's one of those interviews where such a fascinating character. I just didn't want to lose 10 minutes worth of what he was talking about, Kieran, because every second he was talking there is just so fascinating.
I think I could literally talk. I reckon I could just talk to him all day and get a bloody series out of him, because he's got some stories to tell.
Have you got any news you want to start us off with today?
Loads of news. 2000 Trees have announced their first headliner for the festival. It's on one of the smaller stages. It's Rival Schools. And today, Slam Dunk announced that their lineup, and they have Kids in Glass Houses playing, who've reformed especially for the festival. So some really great surprises there if you're into your pop punk or American hardcore underground music. I'm so excited for the festival season next year already.
Mm-hmm.
Can you believe, though, festivals are now announcing 2023 lineups already?
It seems weird, doesn't it?
It does.
It does seem weird. This is a bit of breaking news coming in today, just as we were recording. So I thought I'd just mention it. And that was about the young lad who was stabbed at the Notting Hill Carnival this year. It's turned out to be a rapper, quite a well-known rapper in Bristol, KTor Stretch, 21 years old. His music's kind of grime/drill. So there's nothing we can play that would be suitable for radio play out. But he does have some really good stuff on YouTube. Kieran, you'll agree with me too, and we've said this before. Drill is not really our area of expertise. We don't move in those circles, but we can appreciate a talented artist when we hear them. I feel it's like we need to just pay a little bit of respect there for someone so young, really upcoming musical talent in Bristol, cut short at Notting Hill this year.
That is a real shame. Let's keep supporting. Let's do more music. Let's do something in his memory, but let's not waste what he gave us.
Devizes down by you, the Kaleidoscope Rave Festival in Devizes wasn't going to go ahead because the villagers were a bit worried about having quite a large rave in their countryside, but the councillors have approved it. We're recording this before it's actually happened, but by the time this goes out, the rave will have taken place. I'll be interested to hear the feedback.
So they're only young guys, and they have a really excellent event management document that they presented to the council to justify it. And this is really interesting because actually the council aren't there to say no to you. So if anybody out there has an idea, as long as you've got a watertight document to prove that the event is safe, the council actually can't say no. That's not their job. It's not their rule to say no to you. Their rule is to make it safe.
I would say, just to clarify on that, you do still need to apply with other laws of the land, such as stopping amplified music at a specific time, and don't sell alcohol to children, that kind of thing.
You've got all the health and safety to go through. You've got to have a certain amount of toilets per ratio to people. If you're selling alcohol, you need to have safeguarding in place and all the rest of it. All of that was as long as you can satisfy all of that, they can't say to you, actually, we don't like a rave, or we don't like a steam fair, or we don't like a marathon. They can't say no.
If you want to get in touch with us, you can email at sheerisolation@gmail.com, or you can find previous shows on sheerisolation.co.uk or your streaming service of choice. Kieran, thank you very much for joining me this evening.
Absolute pleasure.
And we will be back same time, same place next week.
Take care, my man.
See you later. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.